We know childhood plays a major role in shaping behaviour, but with Ed Kemper, we see almost a case study in developmental trauma. Children raised in environments of emotional abuse and rejection often develop attachment disorders. For Ed, his mother's coldness and hostility left him unable to form secure attachments. Instead, he developed avoidant and hostile relationship patterns. Ed Kemper later said, "She wouldn't let me show affection. She said I was going to grow up to be just like my father, worthless, so I turned it inward and then outward." Experts call this projective identification. His rage toward Clonel got displaced onto other women. The co-eds he murdered were symbolic substitutes for his mother. His killing of cats may seem like an isolated cruelty, but psychologists see it as part of the McDonald triad, a cluster of behaviours often linked to future violent offenders, cruelty to animals, fire setting, and bedwetting. For children like Ed, hurting animals becomes a rehearsal for power. In an environment where he had no control, cruelty offered a way to reclaim dominance. When Kemper killed his grandparents, experts saw it as both impulsive rage and curiosity. At 15, he displayed signs of early onset psychopathy, lack of empathy, shallow affect, and rationalization of violence. Both at Atacendro, something unique happened. He learned how the system worked. By studying psychiatric tests, he essentially reverse engineered mental health evaluations. This is an example of cognitive empathy without emotional empathy. He could intellectually understand how others felt, but he couldn't feel it. This makes him especially dangerous because he could convincingly fake normality. The murders of the college students weren't just acts of violence, they reflected a deeper sexualized aggression. Kemper admitted to necrophiliac acts with his victims. This is known as paraphiliac behavior, specifically sexual sadism mixed with necrosadism. It wasn't about intimacy, but control and possession. Many serial killers kill strangers because it removes accountability. But Kemper's victims were symbolic. They were proxies for his mother. His sexual urges, rage, and hatred for Clonel fused together. What psychiatrists call fusion of aggression and sexuality. Ed's ultimate act, killing his mother, was the culmination of years of psychological build-up. This act can be seen through the lens of Oedipal conflict theory, not in the literal Freudian sense, but in the idea of unresolved parental domination. Killing Clonel wasn't just homicide, it was symbolic liberation. Now, when he removed her vocal cords, it was an act of symbolic annihilation. He wasn't just silencing her physically, he was destroying the part of her that tormented him his entire life, her voice. At trial, Ed's attorneys pushed for an insanity defense, but psychologists pointed to his planning, cleanup, and Confessions of Proof of Sanity. Kemper represents a rare case, someone with psychiatric traits, charm, manipulation, no remorse, but also high introspection. He could explain his motives clearly. This is why the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit found him so valuable. He wasn't just a subject, he became a teacher in their early profiling program. Now, a professional statement from a forensic perspective. Kemper is fascinating because he bridges two worlds. The disorganized killer, driven by rage and impulse, and the organized killer, who plans meticulously. He could function socially, gain trust, and yet be driven by uncontrollable inner compulsion. Now, the psychological layers. Number one is narcissism. He believed he was smarter than anybody else. Police, doctors, and even other killers. Number two, duality. He longed for connection but destroyed those he connected with. And number three, self-hatred. His hatred of women mirrored his hatred of himself. Now, one question that puzzles many. Why did Kemper confess when he could have continued? Experts believe it was a mixture of ego and exhaustion. Killing his mother resolved his central conflict. After that, there was nothing left. He admitted that after killing Clarnell, his rage disappeared. He no longer needed to kill. This demonstrates goal-driven psychopathy. Once his ultimate objective was achieved, the compulsion eased. Ed Kemper forces us to ask difficult questions about nature, nurture, and responsibility. Nature, his psychopathy, and paraphilias indicate biological predisposition. Nurture, his mother's abuse and childhood trauma fueled his rage. And choice. Despite all of this, Kemper knew right from wrong, but chose murder. Now, Kemper is not an excuse for violence. He is a study in how intelligence without empathy, trauma without healing, and rage without outlet can merge into catastrophic violence. Kemper's psychology is perhaps his most disturbing legacy. His interviews remind us that monsters are not always chaotic or senseless. They can be intelligent, articulate, and self-aware. That combination is what makes him unforgettable and chilling. Thank you so much for listening to another episode on Homicide Highway. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope I added a little bit more information on the psychology behind Ed Kemper. If you would like me to add more details behind the psychology, if you would like me to add more details about his crimes or future crimes of serial killers, please let me know in the comments section. I highly appreciate everybody that listens to my podcast. I want to thank you so much and supporting me on this adventure. And I will catch you on the next one. Bye.
Well, I'm not an expert. I'm not an authority. I'm someone who has been a murderer for almost 20 years.
Can you say how many people might be doing crimes like you were doing?
It would be a guess, but it's not. It's far more than 35.